Welcome to another episode of Diaries of a Life Coach. My name is Larissa Dalton, and I am your host. This podcast documents a journey of building a life coaching business, where I talk about the steps we, as life coaches, take to create a company, build clientele, coaching experiences, discoveries, and transformations. As you may hear a little bit in my voice, I sound a little bit sick maybe. But we have crazy allergies here in Georgia. And today I made my special elixir that's made out of lemon, honey, and ginger. And it's already helped, but it helped a lot of people with allergies. So check out on my Instagram. You can look how I made that. But I'm excited to have my guest today, who is called Luke Fenwick. He is my first male guest, and he's also a fellow podcaster. Luke hosts a podcast called Two Dads, and I'm going to have Luke introduce himself a little bit and tell us a little bit about, the life coaching. He's a life impact coach, so tell us a little bit about the kind of coach we are, what you do, and tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure. I did see your Instagram feed this morning when you were chopping up the ginger, and I am going to try that for sure. I certainly suffer from allergies and itchy eyes and all those kinds of things, and I just love ginger too. So, so thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here, and always happy to talk a little bit about what I do and how I help. And I call myself a life impact coach. There's all kinds of different life coaches out there, but for me, I'm looking to make that impact in people's life by, whatever strategy is necessary. How do I find information from experts within those fields from around the planet and share that information and knowledge with the client that I might be working with, whether or not they might have, relationship issues, or they might have finance issues, or it might just be around they don't have healthy habits in their lives. So how do I find that information to make impact for them? And it's really also about people coming to me and saying, look, I'm just not happy with the story that I'm creating in my life. I'm not happy with the legacy that I'm creating. And, that's where we kind of start. Who are you? What are you trying to create? And then we go from there. And that's really what I try to spend, time with people focusing on that. That's the goal.
Yeah. Luke, and I sense a little bit of accent.
No, I actually get this. I actually get this often. I'm not sure what accent it is. I'm Australian. I've always lived in Australia. I've moved around a lot. Here, I've certainly travelled overseas, but nothing to the point where I've got an accent, but I really don't know where it comes from. You're not the first to say, where is that accent from? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, it's definitely Australian accent.
Yes.
So you're coming from Australia, and you said it's already Thursday there? Because it's still Wednesday back here.
Yeah, it's Thursday morning. It's 9:10 now. We're heading into autumn. We've had some really kind of wild weather here of late. Some parts of Australia have had terrible amounts of rain, which has caused all kinds of issues and flooding and whatnot. I'm down in Melbourne, which is the southeast part of Australia. And usually we have the really bad, cold, wet weather, but we haven't really got to that point yet. Usually August, it's cold, June, July, August, it's really cold and windy. We don't get snow here unless you're up in the Alpines, so it's not as bad as some areas of the States or UK and whatnot. But that's where I'm at. And 9:00 in the morning and off we go.
Yeah, man, I still have to sleep to get there, to get to tomorrow. Yeah. So, it's by your description of the people that you help, it seems like you help a broad variety of people. Do you find that your clients are more international, or are they more Aussie clients? And how do you identify your clients?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a mixed bag. When I first started, I think I had more international clients. I had some people in Germany, UK, the States. And of late, it's really moved to more Australian-based. I'm not coaching anybody at this very moment that's internationally. A few kind of finished up about 3 or 4 weeks ago, actually, and he was over in Ireland. So for me at the moment, it's a really even spread of men versus women. When I first started launching the business, I thought, okay, my target market is going to be men. Naturally, I'm a man thinking, I'd connect more, but it certainly hasn't been that way. It's a real, as I said, even spread, men, women. And it's people that are just saying, I'm maybe not satisfied with where life is at the moment. I talk a lot about legacy and habits. My big thing is around how do I create tiny, powerful habits with people in order to get to their, point in life where they're starting to be happy with the story they're creating around their legacy. So that's my piece, fulfilling legacy. And how do I connect with them? All kinds of different mediums. I'm fortunate enough that I've worked in some really big corporate roles over time. So my network is vast. So I've got a lot of clients that come from that. I'm building a database as well where people kind of jump onto the website and then enter details where they can subscribe and get an ebook, or whether or not it's some of the other stuff, and all of that kind of comes from that ecosystem, and a little bit from social media as well, but certainly not a lot if we're talking about the business and how I'm growing. And I use social media more as a proof of concept more than anything else. Here's key messaging. This is a little bit about the brand. This is what's kind of going on in my life in a small degree. I've certainly done more of that recently now that, we've had a little girl arrived, a few days ago.
Congrats.
So thank you. A little bit more active with that. But usually social media is around just, messaging, communication more so than business development, if that's the kind of word that you might want to use.
So that's interesting that you say that you kind of coach half and half almost. Do you see that men and women have similar sort of challenges? I mean, legacy is kind of like it's neutral, sort of habits is kind of a neutral concept. But in terms of maybe or struggles that women and men face?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think we all have our own self-consciousness and we all have our own fears and doubts, and a lot of those are not dissimilar, but certainly come from different spaces. Most men seem to come to me talking about that they are finding that they are not handling stress and pressure how they thought they would. They are maybe not engaging with their family how they thought they would, and that's a lot of what is driving them. And usually, ladies will come to me and they're saying, I just don't have maybe confidence in myself, and that is then impacting how I go about my, day to day. And that seems to be the really big difference there. I think more of the men are focusing on that family piece and them not delivering versus the expectation that they might have had when they were growing up in their, 20s and 30s and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's very interesting that you've actually brought this up, because I've been recently focusing with my clients, and I see that, and this has been an issue for me. I too came from a corporate world about a year ago. I lost my corporate job.
Yes.
And so I went through this whole process of relinquishing that identity and kind of creating a new one. And I realized at that time, and even, to this day, I'm still working on that, but that my identity was highly tied to my company, to that organization. I was the company was me.
Yes.
After I lost that job, people ask me what I do, and I was like, I don't know what I do anymore. I mean, I make meals for maybe my family, go to grocery shopping, read books, go to the mountain. I don't know. And so, so I started, doing a lot of research and studying, and I'm also, pretty good connection of women, also through my different social networks, like my church, my and now the coaching, sort of my coaching network is expanding, through different avenues. And I started asking women, do you suffer with self-esteem issues, and do you understand what that is, and how do you repair it? How do you build it up? And every single group that I've posed that question to said, yeah, we're having women specifically, we're dealing with self-esteem issues. And so that's kind of what I'm working on developing. I plan to have some kind of like a guided program. But so you see less of that when it comes to men in terms of like, self-esteem, maintaining their worth outside of external factors.
That's a question, not so much a statement, I presume. Well, I think men suffer from different self-esteem issues. Really, I think a lot of them are they trying to live up to an ideal of the picture that they've had painted in their mind for so many years, and I think that's probably not dissimilar to women, although the pictures are really different. Right? Like, a man grows up thinking a man needs to be all these manly things. And sometimes, a woman grows up thinking that she needs to be, if it's, career might be in there, but is it a family? Is it supporting? Is it all these kinds of things? And then sometimes what knocks us off is then when we hit these roadblocks or that world that we were creating, or those kind of that picture that we were, creating of ourselves. When those things start to go a little bit off the canvas, we have these real big issues because we've just grown up every day going, this is the kind of person that I am, or this is the kind of person that I'm building towards. And when that doesn't happen, it's this massive, big kind of slap in the face of, wow, I didn't expect that. Why have I all of a sudden, failed in this point? Like, this is who I am, where it's not really. It's just that ideal and bias that's built up in your mind for so long. But, a lot of men go, okay, well, I need to be the provider. That's what they grow up thinking, financially, I need to do that. I need to be this brave, person, all these kinds of things. And then they get into fatherhood, and then they might get into relationships that have been around for a longer period of time, whether or not it's partners or wives or boyfriends or whatever it might be. And then those things just sometimes don't line up to what we had been envisaging for so long. And if we're not mindful of it and we don't have clarity of it and we don't take the time to sit down with ourselves and figure out what's going on, then it can be really confusing and troubling. And that's when angst and anxiety comes up, because we're just living this unalignment, and people aren't really clear of, like, who am I? What do I want? What are those important things? This is not just the how, what, why kind of stuff, but like, who are you as a person? What are the things that you are looking to create? Like, what do you hold dear? Where are you thinking about those things? Are you contemplating the time in your life many years ago where you were really happy and fulfilled and in a good spot? Or are you contemplating the time where it went sideways and fear and anxiety came in, and then you start to live that life? That's the emotional connection that you have. And all of these things, come up along the way. There is no, rhyme nor reason for it. That's kind of life. There is no silver bullet. A lot of it is around you needing to do the work. It's all good and well to, listen to a podcast like the ones that we produce, or, watch a YouTube video or read a book. But the information is just the information. At the end of the day, you then need to go out and do something with it, and you need to be honest with yourself. This is where I'm at. These are my challenges and troubles, and go from there.
Yeah. Interesting. Speaking of podcasts, I was listening to one this morning with John Maxwell on there, and he talked about his newest book. And this book, I forget what it was called, but interesting thing about it was that he's, working on creating this movement of basically reintroducing values to people. And what he's doing is he's going into different organizations, even, different countries, and meeting with leaders. And the first thing he does is he sits down and they go through values, identify values. He believes that has a tremendous impact on, on decisions we make. So that was kind of interesting. It's kind of what you do. You kind of like decide or identifying who you are, shedding all these layers and looking inside. And
yeah. Like, really early on with all of my clients, I asked them to create, after they've done this, thrive, survive, crash, dive, which we might speak about at some stage or another, but that's around kind of clarity. And then on the back of that, I start to ask people to create a headline statement. So a headline statement is the style of life that you wish to live by. So your aspirations, right? That's not a goal, and these are not habits. This is just, here's your aspirational headline statement of life. And these are the things that you're talking about. Okay, well, what are the values that you want to live by? Like, are you wishing to be, kind, caring, patient? They were things that I started to reflect back on myself and realize that, I was just not patient with anything. I was always around now, go, go, go. And, so I really needed to reflect back and say, well, I want my life to have more patience in it. How do I do those kinds of things? But, going back to your point, values are really important. Having a clear understanding of your ambitions is really important, because until you do that, then you can't create the habits and the day in and day out actions to get you there. And if you, that's the only way, in my opinion, when I work with people, that's how you go about making change in your life.
Yeah, and especially if you're talking about, creating habits, you don't want to have that conflict between values and the habits that you're creating, because they're not going to be sustainable, so everything really has to be in line.
Well, and that's you're hitting the nail on the head. That's where a lot of issues kind of form, is that early on in life, our habits are around, get a job promotion, maybe have more money. Like, it's that kind of thing usually.
Yeah.
It's about having, building your life. And, fair enough. That's what we do, right? We go around and we create those things. But often those habits that are leading us in that direction are not one and the same habits and values that are leading us into the direction of what happens later on in life, when we start to reflect back and say, okay, am I satisfied with the person that I am, how I engage with people, how I talk with people, how I love, how I share, all of that kind of stuff. Sometimes they are, and sometimes people, do a really great job at doing all of these things, but often we are so focused on one particular area, we head down that path and we don't worry about this other stuff. And then we go, wow, okay, how did I get here? Now I need to make some changes.
Yeah. So one of the questions that came up on my Instagram, I posted a little question, about what people would be interested in learning. And one of the questions was to differentiate between self-esteem and self-confidence. How would you differentiate those two?
Yeah, great. Okay, awesome question. So I think self-esteem is a deeper core value and belief in yourself in regards to doing, esteemable acts and a, quality of life and an ongoing, this is the flavor that I'm creating around myself. And that creates a deep feeling of self-esteem, who I am, what I'm about, what's going on. All of it's more of a holistic thing, whereas a self-confidence, I believe, is probably more of an in the moment surface kind of piece. I'm confident in this particular thing, and maybe it is a little bit more, subjective versus the other thing, which is a bit more of an entire story. So I think that's probably how I'd come at it if someone said, okay, I have, low self-esteem of myself. Well, okay, where has that come from? What is that story that's driving that low self-esteem? I think that's probably going to be more rooted in past history versus, okay, self-confidence. Is that a particular thing that you're looking to do? Is it just in the moment? Is it what particular area of life? How do we build up that confidence, more going forward?
Yeah. So if somebody came to you, with having, I guess there's no really like a scale, but you can't put a number on self-esteem, but sometimes, that a person is, and the person themselves might know that they're dealing with, self-esteem issues or lacking self-esteem. So what would you think, how would you approach that situation? What would you recommend?
Yeah, so the self-esteem piece, I think there is that dig into where it started and where it came from. And is that self-esteem coming from you? Is that self-esteem, challenge coming from, people or places or circumstance in your life. So digging in and understanding those kinds of things. I think it's also about finding what existed before that self-esteem not being in a good spot. So instead of us focusing on that particular story whenever that started, how do we go back before when self-esteem, was really, really different? So how do we find that kind of connection? Because that's often where we find the power, is where do we get the emotional connection and how do we use that to drive us forward? So there is that piece. I think self-esteem, you can also start to understand and see what else exists around you in the world. So what are other people going through that might be able to support you to change that perspective that you have on yourself or the life that you are creating? So what does that look like? How do you gain different clarity? And then on the back of it, it's, and I mentioned it before, it's esteemable acts. So if your self-esteem is low, then is that because you've been doing particular things? And then what are those esteemable acts that you can do to take you forward? And then as you're doing them over time, how do you recognize them and, enjoy them and celebrate them? Because if your self-esteem has been low for a long period of time because of, as I said, people, place, circumstance, and you've been carrying that for 10, 15, 20 years, it's not going to be a bang, let's change it tomorrow. It's going to be a gradual building, uncovering, understanding. That's a past story. This is what we do going forward. These are the acts. This is what helps you, and then kind of going from there. But I think that's where I start. I go backwards to uncover before I go forwards. And I do that with any client. I think that's just 101 that we all need to do.
Yeah. So I think what I would add to that, and I think that all those are great. So if that particular person who asked this question is hopefully listening, but I like the esteemable acts. That's almost like manifesting the state of your self-esteem almost, or revealing, where you are. But I think one word that resonates with self-esteem for me is worthy. I think that for women, and this is just through my conversations, I feel like a lot of women don't feel worthy. And if you never thought about it, if you never questioned, I think just the comprehension that you're equal to every other person here on the planet, that you're worthy, regardless of your acts, regardless of your attributes and contributions, you're worthy as a person, as a human being. I think that's one thing I would add. And also, being very much aware of what validates you as a person, because if it changes, what's going to happen to you, For example, like work, for example, for me, I lost my job, and what happened to me, I took that validation from external factor versus validating myself from the inside and understanding that I'm worthy. Or like a relationship, sometimes people are validated through relationships. Relationship goes sour, and then your self-esteem goes down, divorces, things like that, or even kids leaving for college, that can have an impact on your self-esteem because you've found that validation through being a home or caretaker. And so those are just a couple of the things that I would add, but I like your sort of like uncovering process and
yeah, I think there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with if you are a mum, okay, a mum at home, and you take joy out of creating a beautiful environment for your family. Like there is nothing wrong with that. And I think sometimes, society, we've kind of gone into this space that maybe that's not okay for whatever reason. It's, you need to do all of these other things and, mum's part of it, but X, Y, and Z. But if that's what your life is and that brings you joy and happiness and fulfillment and all those kinds of words, and that's beautiful, like enjoy that. But it's don't lose the rest of yourself, of who you are and what are important for you, and get it all tied up within that. I'm creating this for my family, because what can happen possibly I've got a couple of clients that's happening with this at the moment. They get later on in life and, family moves out and the kids leave and relationship with
Mhm.
husband's really different, and they've poured their heart and soul into that environment for so long, and they've really lost connection with that whole, who am I and what do I really want? And then that's when the problems start to exist, because okay, well, what do I do next? So always have that clarity on, yes, I'm doing these things. And work, you made mention before, it's really important to not connect with I am this part of work, right? Connect with I'm at work, I'm doing these things, I'm learning and growing within this role. This is how I'm improving myself. This is what I'm focusing on, not I'm focused on the job title and the paycheck and,
Right.
and winning that. Like, when you connect to that internal piece, and same as what I
Mhm.
was referring to before, then you have more of that holistic and ongoing conversation that I'm just focusing on myself to be the best in this particular moment and grow and learn and share and move forward. And that's how you continue to grow and learn.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good advice. I like that. So since you've transitioned to coaching from your corporate world, do you find it satisfying?
Yeah, it's night and day. I've been really fortunate to work in all kinds of different industries over the last 25 years. If I go a few stops back, I worked for LVMH. So you might have heard Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, Moet Chandon, Dom Perignon, all these kind of big, luxury brands. So I worked there for about 7 years and did amazing things and, traveled the world and, went to really cool events and all this kind of jazz. And that for me at that point in time was, just around, the finance and growing and whatnot. And then I left there and went to Melbourne United, the basketball club. Like I love the sport of basketball. And for me there, it was around passion and purpose. The passion was I love the sport. I love seeing all the families enjoying game day. My
Mhm.
purpose was to bring the sport back. So, that gave me great fulfillment. I left there and went to work for a big advertising marketing agency, and that was purely for the dollars and a good opportunity to grow into a bigger role. But I wasn't fulfilled and I wasn't happy, and then that created all these kind of other, angst and anxiety within me. But to answer your question, once I left there and then started my own business, like that was full of amazing things. It was full of challenges as well, starting a
Yeah.
business, but it's an incredible opportunity for me to continue to grow and learn as a person. And it's an absolutely amazing space to sit down with people and talk about like what's happening in your life and how can I help and what are the challenges and what do you love doing
Mhm.
and who are you and the things that we mentioned before. And it is incredible, and it's amazing to sit down and hear the results that are happening in someone's life and how amped they are for what's going on. And it's just a beautiful space. And then, to come on and do podcasts like this, with yourself is awesome as well, because you're just having a really genuine, beautiful conversation. And I think sometimes that's where the corporate world just really misses out, is there's just not enough
Yeah.
genuine conversation. And I think that's where organizations miss out, because they are so focused on, this particular number or this particular outcome, that they miss some of the things that can absolutely make them from a good organization to an incredible one. And that's how do you get the best out of your people. And if you can enable your people to be the best version of themselves in and out of work, then that has a knock-on effect that it will impact your business. And I think so many organizations just miss that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I launched my business January 1st of this year. So this is like, I just passed my first quarter. And then
Congrats.
I launched podcasts sort of just to kind of start documenting this journey.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's such a interesting creative outlet, and it
It
allows you
is.
to create with completely different group of people, like the podcasters, in addition to the coaches. So it's like a completely different, still kind of adjusting to all of it. And then, of course, the building your business, portion. There's the operation side as well.
Yes.
The marketing,
Yes.
then I'm developing my coaching skills.
Yes.
So
There's a
going in
lot.
like every possible direction,
Yeah.
but it's quite rewarding. I find joy every day coming to my office. I mean, I can sit here all day if I could, and just work on my business.
Yeah.
I'm loving it.
Yeah, there's so much to do. You made mention before, you continuing to grow as a person and understanding, how you will impact people with coaching. There's that one thing. And then there's the other part about growing your business. And then there is the social media stuff. And I think it's really important for people to be purposeful with their actions relating to their business, when I
Mhm.
talk about coaching. So sometimes it's easy to say, okay, I'm going to spend all of my time on social media and X, Y, and Z. Well, is that going to deliver the biggest outcome for you? Is that really something that you wish to do? Is that something that's helping you secure clients or business or whatever your objectives are? Is that proving you as a coach? Like it's understanding where you will make that biggest impact is so important, to not get caught up with because there's all this kind of social media hype from the people that are spending money on ads to do this and do that. But is that delivering the things that you need, versus sitting down and having a conversation with someone, or writing an article or a blog that you can share with a client or a potential client, where you can talk about, hey, these are the challenges that you have as a person. Read this article because this is what I wrote and this is what I feel. Read that. And if you connect with that, then maybe I'm the right coach for you. So just have a look at the things that are going to deliver what you seek before jumping into it.
So as we wrap this up, do you have any last sort of thoughts that you want to leave our audience with, based on the kind of things that we've covered today?
Yeah, I think I'll maybe end it with this. If you're sitting at home, on your couch or in your office, and listening to this podcast, and you do have that, self-esteem or self-doubt or fear or whatever it might be that's flowing through your mind, like, I want you to know that you're not alone. This is not unique, and this is not a burden that you need to carry yourself. So, don't be afraid of those things. There are people around you that can help. But I really want you to ask yourself and think about, well, why not? Why can you not be all of the things that you are seeking? Why can you not be the things that you might be seeing in the world around you that is creating some of that fear and anxiety? Like, you can be all of these things. There's nothing that is stopping you other than yourself. So, don't sit on the couch trying to think yourself out of this. Take that physical step towards the things that you seek. And, when this podcast finishes, get out a piece of paper and a pen or a journal and start to write down, who you are, what you're about, what matters, and what is that one small step that you can take today to head towards that vision that you seek. How can you start to form those habits, even the tiniest one, to lead you down that path? But, don't let that story that you created many years ago hold you back from the life that you're looking to create now. And I think that's what I'd like to share with people.
That's great. I think that's fantastic advice. Thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for coming on despite your growing family and your own, coaching business. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for asking that. So head over to the website. So it's just lukefenwick.com. So lukefenwick.com. You can connect with me there by, subscription. So I do a newsletter that goes out every 4 to 6 weeks or thereabouts. You can, email me via that. It has all links to social media. So I do a little bit on Instagram, a little bit on Facebook and LinkedIn too. It also has links to a blog page. So if you want to read some past blogs or even listen to my podcast, Two Dads, A Coaching Conversation About Life, which I do with Sean, who also was at Jay Shetty School. So, yeah, that's the easiest way to go, is just head to the website and then follow the links to wherever you might wish to go in the little universe that I'm trying to create.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was a pleasure.
It has been awesome to chat.
Thank you. And thank you for everybody for tuning in today. Thank you so much. Hope to see you next time. Have any questions about today's episode?
just head over to my website, larissadalton.com/contact-info and send in your request, or simply email me at larissadalton10@gmail.com. You can find my podcasts wherever podcasts are found. If you would like me to cover a specific topic, also submit that request via website or my email. Connect with me on Instagram at Larissa_Dalton, or book a complimentary session with me at larissadalton.com/coaching. Thank you again for joining me today, and I hope to see you next time.